One of the first things that you need to do is change how you identify and understand your feelings with money. You need to be true to yourself. One of the first things that I notice with people is like, oh, I really don't spend a lot. Oh, I really don't do this. They're lying to themselves. And one of the reasons that people do not track their spending, one of the number one thing I see that people do not track their spending, and then they complain that they don't have money, whether it's in your business or it's personally, is because they don't want to look at it. Once you look at it, you will see where you're wasting. You will see where you're putting your money. You will see, how you're doing. You don't have to live cheaply. You can live frugal. To me, living frugal means that I'm watching everything that I spend and I'm understanding what I'm doing with my money and I'm comfortable with what I'm doing with my money. So you want to make sure that you are comfortable with what you're doing. So my feeling is the 50-30-20 budget. That's what I use. The 50% on the living expenses, the 30% is on the variables, and then the 20% is on savings or debt. It's what we pay on savings or debt. So what you spend your 30 on could be one pair of shoes, but you have enough to be spending a lot. So you need to be able to first diversify how you prefer to have your stuff. If you want it to be 60, 20, 30, I mean, it depends on what, which is, housing costs, fixed costs of things that you need to support yourself. 20 is your variable, 30 is your variable cost, and 20 is your savings or debt. So if you're doing good, then the 20 will go straight to savings, investing, your goal pots that we talk about. So, you want to make sure that you understand how that works. You want to make sure that you're following what you want, what you're comfortable following. And the only way that you're going to do that is to track what you're doing. So by not looking or putting the blinders on your numbers, or by not tracing your numbers and seeing what you're spending, I don't believe in doing a budget without understanding where your money is going in the first place, understanding your money habits. If you don't understand your money habits, you can't make them smart. You can't know, if you don't know what kind of money habits you have, you can't make them smart. You can't make better money choices on that. So that's one of the things that you need to do. So, setting good financial goals, like we're talking about, is when you attempt to buy something, like I said, you ask yourself, is this where I'm where I'm going with buying my goal? So to me, the want section is two ways. I might need a new pair of shoes here, but which pair of shoes will depend on how much discretionary funds I have to spend on other things. So you have to make which discretionary is your priority. And one of the ways that you do that is by tracking. Understand what you're spending your money on. Divide your tracking into what's the main things that happens, the housing and all of the other variables, all of the other costs that's involved in you living. Then your 30% is your variable. That's the part that changes a lot. Then your 20% is your savings. So you can change those numbers, those percentage one way or another, but you decide that, So you have to use your willpower here. So you have that willpower. If you tell yourself that you don't, you're lying to yourself. So one of the things that I cannot stress enough, and I see a lot of clients do, is they lie to themselves about, oh, I really can't afford that. Oh, I really can't do this, or I really can't do that. Why you can't do that is because you're prioritizing something else. If you're not saving 20%, what are you doing with your variables? If you're sending your child to private school, is that a need, or is that a want? Because in America, public schools are free, but you have to decide what your priorities are if you can afford to do that, So you need to make sure that that's one of the things you look at. What kind of car you're getting. We've had several of our experts talk about our car payment and how a car payment can be the reason that you cannot get a mortgage. So understanding you need a car, I live in South Florida. We need cars. We don't have much public transportation. So which car do you need? Do you need the car that you're going to be, you can get a car for $20,000. You can get a car for $5,000 when it comes to a used car. But then you can get a Land Rover. You can get all these other cars that my children point out, because I have boys and they're pointing out on the street, that cost $200,000-$300,000, which would be like a house to me, but you can get that too. So that's also where you are turning a need into a want. So that's a line that I see so many blurs in. Everybody's like, but I need a car. Yeah, but you have a Mercedes and you're paying $1,100 a month for leasing it. So do you really need a Mercedes with an $1,100 a month thing? That's an emotional thing. So you have to get out of that and start thinking rationally about your money. Start thinking about what you need. You need a car. You do not need a Mercedes. You do not need to lease the Mercedes for $1,100 a month. So those are things that you need to talk about. So there was a Harvard study that I was reading on when I was doing my research on the emotions of money. And I have to tell you, this last topic is one of the most difficult topics for me to talk about, because it's something that has to hit you in a certain way. And I want to be able to get to you guys where once you make this part, once you have achieved some level of this part, the other 9 things that we talked about first are not going to be that hard, because this is the emotional one. So the study said, it examined the impact of parents' home ownership wealth on home buying prospects of children, between the 1999 and 2015. It focused on young adults between the age of 18 and 34 who are likely to be first-time home buyers and have fewer financial resource. So what the study found that having home buying parents increases on a young adult likelihood of being a homeowner by 7 to 8%. Additionally, a 10% increase in parents' wealth increases as the young adult likelihood of buying to 15% by 15 to 20%. So, for example, if your parents' wealth is $200,000, so let me explain this. If your parents' wealth is $200,000, the young adult would have a 50% likelihood of owning a home. If your parents' wealth is $260,000 instead, factoring in everything else the same, the young adult's home ownership prospect is between 54 and 56%. Parental wealth includes financial assets, non-financial assets, such as homes, automobiles. Of course, we minus out the debt there. And the parents' tenure status wealth once that increases, that explains between a 12 and a 13% difference in home ownership between Black and white young adults. So there is a disparity between races when it comes to this. But, I am an immigrant and I don't fall into either one of those categories. And I'm telling you, from someone with her father who came with $100 in her pocket, and I have achieved some of this and beyond, I can tell you it's possible if you follow, these 10 steps that we've just talked about. If you have your literacy on all of these, if you start learning smart money habits. So, and the thing is, we have to balance our emotions with the money. We have to make sure that we are, we know what we're doing. We have to make sure that we know how to save. We have to make sure that we are balancing our debt. We're looking at our retirement, all the things that we've talked about in the first 9 topics that we're talking about. So, we have to make sure that we've done all of this. We're looking at this. We're looking at our life. We're looking at what it is and how we're balancing that out, So money has a huge impact on many people's lives. As a result, it's a natural thing to get attached to. It's a great deal of emotions that you can attach to money. It's easy to attach yourself to money. We are going to be attached to emotionally to money. We just have to find a way to work around that. So we want to make sure that we're working out our pity party with the money, and then we take our time and think logically. After we've had the irrational behavior with the money, before we make that decision, we should know ourselves enough that this is irrational and we need to look at this, So, a Northern Mutual Planning and Prospect study also found that while 68% of Americans feel good about their financial situation, a substantial amount of people also report feeling these negative emotions regularly. They feel 54% feel anxiety, 52% feel financial insecurity. 48% feels fear. So while 68% of you do feel like you're doing well with your money, you still have these other emotions that are involved in here. So it's how you get comfortable with these emotions and get past these emotions. It's not like it's not going to be there. It's going to be there. It gets easier once you learn how to handle it. So, money is also, a dominant source of stress. So we want to make sure that we know, we understand the anxiety, the stress, and everything behind it. But I cannot tell you the number one issue is the denial and defense mechanism. That is what we use all the time. Because we have such low self-esteem on money, we don't address our money issues and our financial goals. And then it gets worse. We get into our holes and we don't address these things. But I'm here to tell you that it's never too late to do that. It's never too late to address your anxiety, your fears, admit to yourself what your money issues are. I'm very sorry, but today we don't have AC in the studio. So you're going to have to excuse my very shiny face when I'm talking about all of this because the lights are making me sweat. So the end all be all anyways is, you don't want to have any regret or anger. You want to be comfortable with what you're buying. So before you decide on what you're buying and before you decide on how you spend your money, you need to be able to support your decision. So you can't just support your decision today. You need to be able to support your decision 6 months from now or a year from now or whatever. Now, let's talk about keeping up with the Joneses. Most of our financial problems when it comes to making a need into a want is having to do with jealousy and keeping up with the Joneses. The grass is always greener on the other side, we always say, until we get on the other side and we realize things aren't what they seem. I am telling you, like I said, I look at people's finances for a living. So you trying to keep up with the Joneses is you don't know what is in the Joneses bank account. You only know what kind of car the Joneses drive because money is a very personal thing. Nobody talks about their finances behind. Nobody knows what the person's books is. Nobody knows what the person's finances, their debt is or anything. We only know that they drive a BMW. We only know that they live in a big house. We only know that that's what might be a rich person, but is that a wealthy person? A rich person is someone, in my opinion, a rich person is someone who makes six figures. They're able to make money. They're able to make lots of money, but they're not necessarily wealthy because they're not a lot of the times they're not able to keep that money. Wealthy people are people with assets, people that have assets that are able to hold on to their assets. Assets is something, it's a balance sheet of the person. It's something that you keep from year to year to year. A rich person, they make so much money in 1 year. Are they able to keep some of that? So, diversifying, making sure that you're living at your means and slightly below your means is when you're able to save that 20% in whatever field you're necessary. So, free yourself from the jealousy and free yourself from the channels of feelings or motivate yourself to work harder and have your financial goals. Do not look at what the Joneses are doing. It's great that they're doing great. It's great that they're in charge of their money. You're in charge of your money. Get an emotional balance with your money. You want to make sure that you're emotionally balanced. You want to make sure that you can relate to what you're doing. You want to make sure that you understand that, because in the end, what are we doing this for? What is our finance goal in the end? Our finance goal is to live a content, happy, fruitful life. And we want to be able to use money as our servant to help us do that. So that does not mean you live on one end or the other end. What do I mean by the different ends? So my problem with society today is that we're too much on one side and we're too much on the other side. So let's talk about that. So how I see people most of the time is most people are on one side where they're instant gratification, right? They believe in instant gratification. They want it now. They don't care how much it costs. They don't know, they're always broke because they don't track their money. They're not looking at it. They're overspending. They're doing all the things that they want now. They're not thinking about anything. And then there are people on the other side who live so far below their means that all they do is look at the money that they have in the bank. They deprive themselves of things. That's what makes them happy is what's the money growing. So they're wealthy, but are they living? These people are rich, but are they living? So what you want to do is come to the middle. Find your middle balance emotion with money. You want to make sure that when you're not instant gratification and you're not deprivation, you're in the middle. Because the purpose of money is to make sure that you live a balanced, well life. That's the main purpose of money. You send your kids to college. You make all your financial goals is to reach these goals, and the goals are all for the betterment of the life that you're living here on earth. So God gives us all enough for us to, I believe that God gives us all enough in certain situations for us to work with. So today, whatever God gave me is enough. My job is to find a way to make that work for me. Tomorrow, that enough might be a different number. Only with my spiritual thinking is God knows what that enough is. So that's how I live life. I try to use my enough today to make things work for me. And the way to do that is to not, hold it aside. Like I've told you the Bible story already of the three sons who the father gave them each 5 shillings. One of them buried it in the backyard because he's going to save it. He's not going to do anything with it. The other one went and enjoyed everything with it. The other one went and invested it in his 5 cows, enjoyed the time that he spent with his cows, and multiplied his cows. So I want you to be the son that goes out there, track your money, spend your money, be comfortable with what you're doing, tell yourself the truth about your emotions. And that is why we had these other 9 topics, is to get to the point of contentment, well-being, and using money as our servant and not our master. This is Sherron, the Modern Savvy CPA, and thank you for listening to this series. And I will be coming up with a next series on my next show.